The alarm jolted me awake at precisely 6:15 a.m., same as it did every Wednesday. I fumbled for the silence button before its shrill cry could rouse Lily, my daughter, in the next room. She'd always been a feather-light sleeper, and waking her too early was a recipe for a grumpy morning, for her and me both. I lingered in bed for a beat, eyes tracing the faint slivers of dawn slicing through the blinds, painting jagged stripes across my ceiling. The house groaned its usual early chorus as the furnace rattled to life, a sound I'd grown used to, though I'd been meaning to call someone about that old beast. It was probably older than Lily, who'd just turned 9 last month, and between the rent and socking away cash for her future, fixing it kept sliding down my list. In the bathroom, I splashed icy water on my face, peering into the mirror at a man who looked every bit of his 43 years. Gray flecked my temples now, and the creases around my eyes seemed to deepen overnight. Lily called them laugh lines, her little voice full of cheer, but I knew better. A decade of solo parenting had etched them there, a map of sleepless nights and stretched paychecks. I shook off the thought and headed to the kitchen, starting on her lunch. A turkey and cheese sandwich, a handful of grapes, and those tiny oatmeal cookies she couldn't get enough of. Halfway through, I heard her door creak open, followed by the soft scuff of slippers on the hardwood. "Morning, Bug," I called, keeping my eyes on the cutting board. "Sleep good." Lily's reply was a muffled hum as she clambered onto a stool at the counter, her chestnut hair a wild tangle from sleep. She hugged her stuffed owl, Hootie, a faded relic she'd clung to since she was a toddler. "You got the cookies this time?" she asked, squinting at the lunch bag with mock suspicion. I clutched my chest, feigning a wound. "That was one slip-up, 3 months back, and you're still holding it over me?" "It was a dark day," she said, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Ellie had those fancy shortbreads, and I was stuck with carrot sticks." "The great cookie fiasco of 24, I teased, sliding a bowl of oatmeal her way. "Eat up, kid. We're running a hair late." While she spooned breakfast into her mouth, I checked my phone. A text from the shop. Pete was out sick again. That meant another day wrestling extra shifts at the garage, and my shoulders were still whining from last week's overtime. Outside, the world was eerily hushed, a thick fog blanketing our little town of Ashwood. It pressed against the kitchen window, so dense I couldn't even spot the miller's porch light next door, just a gray wall swallowing everything. "Looks creepy out there," Lily said, now alert, her nose smudging the glass as she stared. "Like a ghost movie you'd never let me watch." "Which is why you're banned from them." I shot back, grabbing our coats. "It's just fog, Bug. Sun'll chase it off by lunch." But something about it nagged at me. It didn't shift or swirl like fog should. It just hung there, heavy and still, like it was waiting. I brushed it off as we hustled to the car. No point in spooking myself over weather when I had oil changes and tire rotations piling up. The drive to Lily's school crawled by, the fog thickening as we wound through Ashwood's quiet streets. I hunched over the wheel, squinting to catch the yellow lines. The radio crackled with a local DJ yammering about low visibility, tossing out cheesy lines like, "Forget about driving fast today." I rolled my eyes. "Hey, Dad," Lily piped up from the back seat, her voice cutting through the static. "Why's the fog look off?" I glanced at her in the rear view. "Off how? I dunno. Weird. Like it's staring back or something." I forced a chuckle, though it stuck in my throat. "Fog doesn't stare, Bug. It's just vapor. Science, remember?" "I know," she muttered, hugging Hootie tighter. She didn't sound sold. The school lot was a mess, parents weaving through the haze, headlights barely cutting through. I dodged a SUV that lurched out of nowhere, biting back a curse Lily didn't need to hear. "Drama club today?" I asked as she grabbed her backpack. "Yeah," she nodded. "We're building the castle set. Miss Carter says I can paint the turrets." "Nice. Have fun, okay? I'll grab you at 4:30. She leaned over for a quick hug and darted out, her green backpack vanishing into the gray as she ran for the doors. I watched until she was gone, an odd pang tugging at my chest, some gut instinct whispering to keep her close today. I shook it off. She'd be fine. The garage was a quick hop from school, but the drive felt endless, the fog clinging to the windshield like it wanted in. I kept checking my mirrors, though for what, I couldn't say. The radio fritzed out, news snippets about unusual weather breaking through the static before fading to white noise. The lot at Dawson's Auto was sparse when I rolled in. I flashed my badge at the gate, nodding to Carla on security. She was glued to her phone, her usual grin replaced by a tight frown. "You good?" I asked, pausing. She flinched, nearly dropping the device. "Oh, James, yeah, just weather updates. My cousin in Pine Hollow says this fog's worse there. Says it's messing with people." "Messing how?" She shrugged, eyes flicking to the gate's window. "Didn't say. Just weird." The shop floor was quieter than usual when I clocked in. No chatter about last night's game, no griping about coffee. Everyone seemed locked in their own heads, tools clanking against engines in a muted rhythm. The big bay windows, usually flooding the place with light, were smothered in gray, the fog pressing so close it looked solid. "Pete's out." My boss, Ray, grunted as I tied on my apron. "Need you on his lifts too." I nodded, already dreading the ache in my knees. "Any word on this fog lifting?" Ray glanced at the windows, then away fast. "Weather folks don't know. Said it's not like anything they've tracked before." As the morning dragged on, the fog seemed to thicken, if that was even possible. The shop's harsh lights buzzed overhead, casting odd shadows that danced in the corners. More than once, I caught myself staring, half convinced they moved when I wasn't looking. By 11, a knot of guys clustered near the break room TV. I couldn't hear it from my station, but the red ticker at the bottom screamed, "Emergency broadcast." Probably just a visibility warning. I figured, fog this bad could snarl highways for miles. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "Dad, the fog's acting funny again. Ms. Carter won't let us out for recess." I typed back fast, "Smart call. Nothing to fret over. Just stay inside." But as I pocketed the phone, a chill crawled up my spine. The fog wasn't just weather anymore. It felt alive, pulsing against the glass. In the distance, I thought I heard sirens, faint and far off. I checked my watch, 11:50 a.m. 4.5 hours till I'd pick up Lily. The fog would clear by then, I told myself. Everything would snap back to normal, except it didn't feel that way. Deep down, in that raw, primal part of me that had kept me sharp through lean years and late nights, I knew normal was slipping away. My phone buzzed again, not a text this time, but an alert. The screen flared with that stark emergency symbol, and as I stared, every phone in the shop chimed in unison, a chorus of dread cutting through the hum of machinery. I read the message, then again, my pulse kicking up. "Emergency alert. Seal all windows immediately. Do not look outside." My hands shook as I lowered the phone. Around me, the shop erupted in confusion, guys muttering, craning to peek past the glass. Ray stormed toward the windows, barking, "Back off, everyone. We're locking it down. Protocol." His voice cracked, a rare slip for him. Then my phone rang, shrill and insistent. "Lily's school." My gut dropped as I answered. "Mr. Carter?" It was Principal Evans, his voice tight, formal, nothing like the easygoing guy I'd swapped small talk with at back-to-school nights. "You need to come get Lily. Now." "Mike, what's happening?" I pressed. A beat of silence, just his ragged breathing. Then, low and urgent, "Just get here, James. Fast. And whatever you do, don't look up. Keep your eyes down, please." The line cut out. I was already moving, snagging my jacket. Ray grabbed my arm as I bolted past. "James, the alert says stay put." "My kid." I snapped, shaking him off. He let go, nodding quick. He got it. He had a daughter too. The halls to the exit stretched longer than they should have, my boots pounding the concrete. Carla's desk was empty, First time I'd ever seen it unmanned. Through the glass doors, the lot was a gray void, the fog so thick it swallowed my truck whole. I stepped out, eyes glued to the pavement like Evans said. The air didn't feel right, not damp, but charged, like static prickling my skin. A low hum vibrated in my jaw as I counted steps to the truck. 1, 2, 3. Something flickered in my peripheral, a tall, spindly shape, too still to be human. 4, 5, 6. Another, closer. 7, 8. My keys slipped in my sweating palms as I yanked the door open. In the side mirror, I glimpsed it, a pale, stretched figure, motionless 20 feet back. I tore my eyes away, Evan's warning screaming in my skull. The engine roared, too loud in the dead air. I peeled out, keeping my gaze locked on the wheel, the fog clawing at the windows like it wanted in. Lily was waiting, and whatever was out there wasn't going to stop me from getting to her. The truck's engine growled as I tore out of Dawson's lot, the fog swallowing the world behind me. My knuckles whitened on the steering wheel, eyes locked on the dashboard. I didn't dare lift them. Principal Evans' voice looped in my head. Keep your eyes down. The air buzzed against my skin, a strange electric hum that made my molars ache. The fog wasn't just thick, it felt alive, pressing on the windows like it was testing the glass. I swerved around a shadow that might have been a parked car, my breath hitching. Lily was waiting, and every second stretched into forever. Ashwood streets were a nightmare. Horns blared somewhere to my left, sharp and panicked, while screams pierced the gray, muffled, like they were underwater. A figure bolted past the truck, a blur of motion too fast to clock, his face a mask of terror. I forced myself not to track him, gripping the wheel tighter. Main Street was a graveyard of abandoned vehicles, doors flung open, engines still idling. I dodged a pickup stalled sideways, its headlights dim pinpricks in the haze. The radio spat static, broken by garbled snippets, unprecedented conditions, stay indoors, then nothing but white noise, loud and grating. Hey, Bug, I muttered under my breath, like Lily could hear me. Hang tight. Dad's coming. It was a lifeline, a tether to keep my head straight. The fog darkened, or maybe my eyes were playing tricks. Either way, it clung thicker now, seeping into the cab through the vents. I slammed them shut, but the humming grew, a low pulse that rattled my bones. The school loomed ahead, a vague shape in the gray soup. The lot was chaos, parents weaving through the murk, tires screeching as cars peeled out. I laid on the horn 3 times, our old signal from storm drills. I'm here, Lily. The front doors stayed shut, a slab of shadow against the fog. My phone buzzed, Evans again. I snatched it up, fumbling the speaker button. James, I see you, he said, his voice clipped. Urgent. Stay in the truck. Keep it running. I'm bringing Lily out. Mike, what the hell's going on? I demanded, my throat tight. No time. He cut me off. Just trust me. And James, if you see anything out there that looks off, don't talk to it. Don't look at it. Especially not the eyes. The line died before I could push back. I scanned the pavement through the windshield, avoiding the edges of my vision where shapes flickered, tall, thin, wrong. My chest pounded like a jackhammer. The school doors creaked open, a sound that sliced through the static air like a blade. Evans emerged, his stocky frame hunched protectively over a smaller figure, Lily, clutching Hootie to her chest. They moved fast but deliberate, her eyes fixed on her sneakers, his hands steering her shoulder. Just like we practiced, Lily, I heard him say, his voice carrying oddly. Count your steps. I flung the passenger door wide as they neared. Lily scrambled in, her face pale, eyes wide but dry, no tears yet. My tough little Bug. Evans buckled her in with quick, practiced hands, keeping his gaze on the floorboard. James, he said, leaning in just enough, get her home. Lock everything, doors, windows, all of it. Don't let anyone in, no matter what they say or who they sound like. Mike, talk to me. What? No time, he snapped, pulling back. Keep her safe. And don't look at their eyes. He slammed the door and turned, vanishing into the fog with those same careful steps, head bowed. Daddy. Lily's voice was small, trembling. What's happening? I don't know, Bug. I said, forcing calm I didn't feel as I threw the truck into gear. But we're heading home. We'll be okay. It was half a prayer, half a lie. I'd make it true somehow. The drive back was a fever dream. The fog wrapped tighter, a living shroud that pulsed against the truck. I stuck to the road by memory, following faint tire tracks where I could. Gunshots cracked nearby, 3 sharp pops that made Lily flinch. "There's someone in Mr. Dawson's yard," she whispered, her face pressed to Hootie. "Don't look," I said fast, sharper than I meant. I shut. Bug. We're almost there. But I'd seen it too, a silhouette, too tall, too still, standing by the oak tree across the street. The static hum spiked, prickling my scalp. Our driveway was a beacon when it finally appeared. I parked crooked, killing the engine. "Okay, Lily, listen, we're going inside quick." Eyes on the ground, hold my hand. "Got it." She nodded, clutching Hootie like a shield. I stepped out first, the air thick with that electric buzz, and rounded to her side. Something shifted at the edge of the yard, a slow, deliberate sway. I grabbed her hand, warm and tiny in mine, and we bolted for the porch. My keys jangled too loud, the lock stubborn under shaky fingers. Behind us, footsteps, soft, measured, echoed in the fog. I didn't turn. Couldn't turn. The door gave, and we stumbled in. I slammed it shut, throwing the bolt and chain with a clatter. Lily stood frozen in the hall, her breath quick, Hootie dangling from one arm. "Help me, Bug," I said, moving fast. "We're sealing up. Grab the blankets from the closet." She snapped to it, small feet pattering as I yanked curtains closed, shutting out the gray. The house felt smaller, the walls too thin against whatever was out there. We worked in tandem, me taping towels over the kitchen window, her dragging quilts to block the living room glass. Outside, the footsteps multiplied, a creeping shuffle across the lawn. The static hum seeped through the cracks, a low whine that set my teeth on edge. We finished in the living room, a fortress of fabric and furniture. Lily hovered close, her eyes darting to the windows. "What now?" she whispered. I forced a smile, crouching to her level. "Hot cocoa time. Kitchen. Let's go." It was normalcy, a lifeline to cling to. She trailed me, Hootie in tow, as I lit the stove. The static grew louder, a rhythmic thrum like a heartbeat in the walls. I handed her mugs to fetch, marshmallows to count, busy work to keep her steady. The milk simmered, steam cutting through the charged air. "Daddy," she said softly, setting the mugs down. I saw one. At school, by the slide. Before Mr. Evans got me. My hand froze on the spoon. What did you see? It was tall. Really tall. And its arms, they weren't right. Too long. Miss Carter made us look down, said not to stare, but I saw it moving. She shivered, hugging Hootie tighter. "You did good, Bug," I said, pouring the cocoa. "Not looking's what's keeping us safe." Outside, something scraped the house slow, deliberate, like claws on wood. Lily jumped, cocoa sloshing. I pulled her close. "Ignore it. We're camping in here tonight. Living room, blanket fort, the works. Like when it storms." She nodded, a flicker of her old spark returning. "With Hootie's lantern? Wouldn't dream of skipping it." I grabbed supplies, pillows, her little owl-shaped light, building a cocoon in the living room. The tapping started then, soft and insistent, bouncing from window to window. Lily pressed against me as I strung up the lantern, its warm glow a frail shield against the gray seeping through gaps. "James." A voice cut through the static, Ray's voice, rough and familiar, right outside the front window. "Let me in, man. It's cold out here." Lily's eyes widened. "That's not him," I said firmly, though my gut twisted. "It's a trick. Remember the alert. Don't answer, no matter what." The voice shifted, smooth and warm, Miss Carter now. "Lily, sweetie, I've got your castle painting. Don't you want to finish it?" Open the door. Lily's hands flew to her ears, tears brimming. "Make it stop, Daddy." I started humming, "You Are My Sunshine," an old tune my mom sang to me. Lily joined in, her voice wobbly but growing. We drowned it out, the pleas fading to static. But the shadows moved faster now, long and jagged across the curtains. The tapping synced up, A chorus of knocks circling the house. Through a slit in the blankets, I saw it, gray tendrils curling under the door, bringing that electric hum with them. I stuffed a towel against it, but the fog kept coming, pooling in corners like smoke. "Story time," I said, pulling Lily into the fort. "You pick. No dragons, right?" She nodded, curling against me. "No dragons. Too scary." "Once upon a time," I began, voice low, "there was a clever girl and her dad, the mechanic. They lived in a strong house, and one foggy night." I spun the tale, weaving safety into every word, while outside, the voices multiplied, neighbors, friends, all wrong. The static sang with them, a lullaby from a nightmare. Lily's breathing slowed, her head heavy on my chest. I kept talking, eyes on the shadows, tall, thin, waiting. The night was young, and they weren't leaving. But neither were we. The blanket fort glowed faintly under Hootie's lantern, a tiny island of light in the living room's darkness. Lily nestled against me, her breaths slowing as my story about a clever girl and her mechanic dad spun tales of safe havens and bright mornings. But my eyes stayed sharp, tracking the gray wisps curling through the cracks, under the door, around the window frames, pooling in corners like spilled ink. The static hum pulsed stronger now, a living thing threading through the walls, vibrating in my chest. Outside, the tapping kept its relentless rhythm, a drumbeat of patience from whatever waited in the fog. Lily stirred, her voice a sleepy murmur. "Daddy, what are they?" I tightened my arm around her, buying time as I smoothed Hootie's worn feathers. "I don't know, Bug, but they can't get in unless we let them. That's why we're staying quiet, staying put." She nodded, but her brow creased. "I keep seeing that one by the slide. Its hands, they bent funny, like they didn't have bones." She shivered, burrowing closer. "They're not like us," I said, keeping my tone steady. "But we're smarter. We're not looking, not answering. That's our shield." A lie wrapped in hope. I'd take it over nothing. The tapping paused, and for a heartbeat, I thought they'd given up. Then a new sound, slow, heavy footsteps creaking across the porch. They stopped by the living room window, too close, and the static spiked, prickling my scalp. "James," came Carla's voice, bright and warm like she'd just clocked in at the gate. "It's me. I got away from the shop. Let me in, please. It's freezing out here." Lily's head snapped up, eyes wide. "That's Miss Carla." "It's not." I cut in, firm but quiet. "It's them, Bug, trying to trick us. Don't listen." The voice shifted, deeper now, Principal Evans. "James, they're gone. It's safe now. Open the door. I'll get you and Lily out of here." The words were perfect, his calm authority spot on. But something lurked beneath, a wrongness like a warped tape. Lily pressed her hands to her ears, tears spilling over. "Why do they sound so real?" "They're good at pretending," I said, pulling her tight. "But we're better at not falling for it." I started humming again. "You are my sunshine," and she joined, her voice thin but stubborn. We sang until the pleas faded, swallowed by the static's drone. But the footsteps didn't stop. They circled the house, slow and deliberate, a predator pacing its cage. Through a gap in the blankets, I saw them, shadows sliding past the windows, too tall, too thin, their limbs bending at angles that defied nature. The fog thickened outside, pressing against the glass like a hand, leaving smears that weren't wet, but something else. The static turned musical, a high, sweet note that tugged at my brain, urging me to peek, just a glance, just to see. I squeezed my eyes shut, focusing on Lily's warmth, the solid floor beneath us. "Tell me more," she whispered, tugging my sleeve. "About the girl and her dad." "Once upon a time," I picked up, voice low, "they built a fort tougher than steel." The fog came, thick and sneaky, but they had a secret weapon, each other. I wove the tale, layering courage into every line, while the shadows danced outside. A new voice joined the chorus, Mrs. Miller from next door, her cheery lilt twisted wrong. "Lily, I've got those oatmeal cookies you love. Open the door, sweetie. It's just me." Lily flinched, but I kept talking. The girl and her dad laughed at the tricks, 'cause they knew the truth stayed inside their fort. The voices piled on. Ray, Carla, Evans, overlapping in a warped symphony, begging, promising, pleading. The static wove through it, a thread of noise that might have been words once, might have been screams. A thud hit the kitchen window, sharp and heavy. The towel I'd taped there shifted, letting a sliver of gray light spill in. Lily gasped, clutching Hootie. "Stay here," I whispered, but she grabbed my arm. "No, Daddy, don't." Another thud, then another, rhythmic, testing. They were probing, I realized, hunting for a crack in our defenses. They couldn't come in uninvited, but they'd scare us into slipping. I slid between Lily and the fort's entrance, shielding her. "If anything happens," I murmured, "you run next door to the Millers. Straight there, eyes down, bang on the door till they answer. Promise me." "Daddy, no." Her voice broke, tears streaming. "Promise." I pressed, gentle but firm. She nodded, sobbing quietly. The thud stopped, replaced by a scraping, long, slow drags down the siding, like nails on a chalkboard. Then, cutting through the static, a sound that froze my blood. Sirens, faint but growing. Real ones, not the hollow mimics from before. Lily's head jerked up, hope flickering in her eyes. The shadows outside wavered, the static faltering like a bad signal. Helicopter blades thrummed overhead, a steady chop slicing the air. "Help," she whispered. "Maybe," I said, straining to listen. The sirens closed in, joined by shouts, human voices, clipped and commanding. Bright lights pierced the fog, clean and sharp, not that sickly gray glow. My phone blared, making us both jump. An emergency update. Military units in area. Stay inside. Assistance en route. The static retreated, replaced by engines roaring, boots pounding pavement. Through the blanket gap, I saw floodlights sweep the yard, the fog thinning under some kind of spray. Ozone stung my nose even through the walls. The shadows fled, jerky and fast, vanishing into the haze. A megaphone crackled outside. "Area under control. Remain indoors. House checks starting soon." Lily gripped my hand, her nails digging in. "Is it over?" I listened. No more tapping, no more voices, just the chaos of rescue. "I think so, Bug. But we're staying put till they come for us." She leaned into me, Hootie squashed between us. "What happens after?" "We stick together," I said, brushing her tangled hair. "Like the girl and her dad. That's what counts." Boots thudded on the porch, heavy and urgent. The door splintered inward with a crash. Lily shrieked as figures stormed in, armored and faceless, their goggles glowing a faint blue. "Clear," one barked, sweeping the hall. Another loomed over us, rifle raised. 2 civilians, no contact? "We haven't looked," I said, pulling Lily behind me. "Been holed up here since it started." "No time to check," the soldier snapped, thrusting 2 pairs of goggles at me. "Put these on now. Eyes shut till they're secure." 3 seconds. I fumbled them onto Lily first, tightening the strap over her wild hair, then yanked mine on. The world turned blue-tinted, the fog glowing a faint red where it lingered. "Move," he ordered, hauling me up. 12 more houses on this block, safe zones 2 miles east. Stay between us, goggles on, no exceptions. They hustled us out, my arm around Lily. Through the goggles, I saw them, the things outlined in red against the blue, retreating from the lights. Their movements jerked, limbs folding wrong, like puppets with cut strings. "Don't look straight at them," our escort warned, shoving us toward a hulking vehicle. "Filters aren't foolproof." The streets were a war zone, soldiers swarming, choppers overhead spraying mist, armored trucks roaring past. Civilians in goggles stumbled from houses, herded like us. "What about the Millers?" I asked as they loaded us in. "Cleared or compromised?" The soldier grunted. No details move. The ride was a blur. Lily pressed to my side. Hootie clutched tight. We weaved through wreckage. Cars abandoned. A bike crushed under tank treads. Checkpoints flashed by, soldiers waving us through with glowing wands. The safe zone rose ahead. The old rec center, now a fortress of steel barriers and blazing lights. Inside, the gym buzzed with survivors, all goggled, faces hollow with shock. "Stay here," our escort barked, already turning. "Goggles on till command says otherwise." No exceptions. He was gone before I could blink. I scanned the crowd. Mrs. Miller cradling her tabby, Evans hugging a knot of kids, even Carla, her usual spark dimmed. Survivors, every one, but changed. Lily's voice cut through the din, small under the chaos. "Daddy, what now?" I looked at her through the blue tint, her brave mask cracking but holding. "We're alive, Bug. Together. That's enough for now." Outside, the fight raged on, rotors whirring, orders shouted, more rescues underway. The sun was climbing somewhere beyond the fog, but the world it'd light up wasn't ours anymore. The rec center's gym buzzed like a hive, a chaotic hum of voices and footsteps echoing off the cinder block walls. Harsh floodlights blazed overhead, casting stark shadows across the sea of survivors. Hundreds of us crammed in, all wearing those eerie blue-tinted goggles. Lily clung to my side, Hootie mashed against her chest, her small frame dwarfed by the armored figures weaving through the crowd. The air smelled of sweat, ozone, and something metallic I couldn't place, a residue of whatever the choppers had sprayed outside. Beyond the steel-barricaded windows, the fog still lingered, but thinner now, pierced by the rhythmic thrum of rotors and the occasional crack of gunfire. I steered Lily to a corner near the bleachers, away from the thickest knots of people. Faces I knew flickered in the crowd. Mrs. Miller rocking her cat like a baby, Principal Evans murmuring to a cluster of wide-eyed kids, Carla staring blankly at the floor. Familiar, yet foreign, their eyes hidden behind those glowing lenses. We were safe, they'd said, but it didn't feel like it, not with the weight of the night still pressing on my chest. "Daddy, it's loud," Lily mumbled, her voice barely cutting through the din. She rubbed one ear, Hootie dangling from her other hand. "I know, Bug," I said, easing her onto a bench. "Try to rest. We're okay here." I scanned the room, clocking the soldiers at every exit, goggles glowing, rifles slung low but ready. A table nearby groaned under stacks of water bottles and protein bars, guarded by a stern-faced woman barking orders to a line of dazed adults. Normalcy, or the Army's version of it. Lily leaned into me, her head heavy on my shoulder. "Are they gone? The tall things?" I hesitated, glancing at the windows. Through the goggles, the fog glowed a faint red where it hadn't burned off, but no shadows danced in it now. "For now," I said, brushing her hair back. "The soldiers chased them off. We're good." She nodded, but her fingers tightened on Hootie. "What if they come back? Then we've got all these guys." I gestured at the troops, and their big toys to handle it. "Plus, you and me, we're tougher than they think." A ghost of a smile tugged at her lips. "Like the mechanic and the girl?" "Exactly," I said, tapping her nose. "Unbreakable team." A soldier strode past, megaphone crackling. "Stay seated. Evacuation teams are sweeping the town. Do not remove goggles until cleared by command." His voice was flat, mechanical, like he'd said it 100 times already. I caught snippets from the crowd, whispers about missing neighbors, strange shapes in the fog, voices that weren't right. My gut twisted, remembering Carla's pleas, Ray's gruff promises, perfect lies from those things out there. Lily's stomach growled, loud enough to make her giggle despite everything. "Hungry, Bug?" I asked, standing. "Let's grab something." We shuffled to the supply table, her hand in mine. The woman behind it, Sergeant Lopez, her tag red, shoved 2 bars and a water at me without looking up. "Rationed," she grunted. One each, till the next truck. Thanks, I muttered, steering Lily back. We unwrapped the bars, peanut butter, dry as sawdust, and chewed in silence, the taste grounding us in the chaos. She sipped her water, eyes darting to the windows every few seconds. Daddy, she said, swallowing hard. What happens to the people who looked? At their eyes? I froze mid-bite, the question hitting like a punch. She'd been piecing it together, her sharp little mind working even now. I don't know, Bug, I admitted, keeping my voice low. The alert said it changes you. Maybe that's how they get more of them. Like zombies. Her brow furrowed, too serious for 9. Sorta, I said, hedging. But we didn't look, so we don't have to worry. She nodded slowly, but I could see the wheels turning. Miss Carter said not to. She was scared, Daddy. I saw her hands shaking when she made us practice walking with our eyes down. She kept you safe? I said, squeezing her shoulder. That's what matters. A commotion erupted near the main doors, shouts, boots stomping, a woman's wail cut off sharp. Soldiers hauled someone in, a man thrashing in their grip, his goggles missing. Looked right at him, he yelled, voice raw. They're still out there, waiting. His eyes were wild, pupils blown wide, and a faint red sheen flickered in them before they wrestled him behind a curtained-off corner. Lily pressed closer, her breath hitching. Just someone spooked, I murmured, turning her away. We're fine. But the room felt smaller after that, the air tighter. The megaphone crackled again, perimeter secure. Remain calm. Medical checks incoming. Medics in hazmat suits filtered in, setting up stations, scanning survivors, barking questions about exposure. A young guy in goggles approached us, clipboard in hand. Names. James Carter. Lily Carter, I said, keeping her tucked against me. Symptoms? Dizziness, ringing ears, urges to go outside. Ringing, yeah, I said. From the static. Nothing else. He scribbled, nodding. Any eye contact with the entities? No. We stayed inside, blocked up. Good. Stay put. Goggles on till we say. He moved on, leaving us with a plastic packet of antiseptic wipes, like that'd fix anything. Lily fidgeted, picking at Hootie's stitching. Daddy, how long do we stay here? Till they figure it out, I said, wiping her hands with a wipe. Could be hours, could be a day. We waited out. She sighed, slumping back. I miss home, even with the creepy fog. Me too. Bug, I said, picturing our little house, the dented couch, her art taped to the fridge. We'll get back. Promise. The hours crawled by, marked by the drone of helicopters and the shuffle of boots. Lily dozed off, head lolling on my arm, Hootie a limp lump in her lap. I kept watch, goggles fogging slightly from my breath. The crowd thinned as groups were escorted out. Relocated, they said, though to where, no one knew. Whispers floated around. They're calling them hollow ones. Heard they take your voice if you look. Half of Pine Hollow's gone. A soldier loomed over me, snapping me alert. Carter, James, and Lily? Yeah, I said, nudging Lily awake. She blinked, groggy. Transport's here. East Wing now. Bring your stuff. I grabbed our wrappers, pathetic loot, and pulled Lily up. Where to? I asked. Processing center, he said, already moving. 10 miles out. Move quick. We trailed him through the gym, weaving past huddled families and medics barking orders. The East Wing was a loading bay, trucks idling in a haze of exhaust. Soldiers waved us into a canvas-covered rig, the kind you'd see in war movies. Lily climbed in, Hootie swinging, and I followed, settling on a hard bench beside her. Other survivors piled in, silent, goggled, clutching what little they'd carried. The truck lurched forward, engine roaring as we rolled out. Through a slit in the canvas, I caught glimpses. Ashwood streets, littered with debris, fog retreating under floodlights. Red silhouettes flickered in the distance, lanky and wrong, scattering from the advance. Lily pressed her face to my side, avoiding the view. Don't look, Bug. I murmured, though the goggles filtered it. The ride was rough, bouncing over potholes and wreckage. A soldier up front muttered into a radio, "Sector C clear." Hollow ones retreating southeast. Static crackled back, unintelligible. Lily's hand found mine, small and cold. "They're really called hollow ones?" she whispered. "Guess so," I said. "Fits, doesn't it?" She nodded, chewing her lip. They sounded empty, like echoes. "Smart kid," I said, squeezing her hand. "You're figuring it out faster than me." The truck slowed, tires crunching gravel, and stopped with a jolt. "Out!" A soldier barked, yanking the canvas aside. We spilled into a fenced compound. Tents, floodlights, more troops barking orders. A sign read Ashwood Processing Zone 1. They herded us into a cavernous tent, rows of cots stretching into the shadows. A woman in fatigues handed us blankets and a slip of paper. Cot 47 to 48. "Stay put." We found our spot, 2 narrow beds side by side. Lily flopped onto hers, hoodie under her arm, goggles slipping slightly. "Fix those," I said, adjusting them. "Rules, bug." She sighed but complied. "Can we sleep now?" "Yeah," I said, sinking onto my cot. "Rest up. I'll keep watch." She rolled toward me, eyes already drooping. "Tell me the story again. The mechanic and the girl?" I smiled, voice soft. "Once upon a time, they found a safe camp, tougher than their fort. The fog tried to follow, but the lights kept it out. I spun it slow, letting her drift off, her breaths evening out. Outside, the compound hummed. Engines, voices, the distant chop of blades. The fog clung beyond the fence, a red haze in my goggles. But here, for now, we were shielded. I lay back, staring at the tent's ceiling, goggles cold against my face. The hollow ones were out there, waiting, but we'd made it this far. Lily's hand dangled off her cot, brushing mine. Together, we'd face whatever came next. The processing tent hummed with a restless quiet, a low buzz of whispered conversations, and the occasional creak of cots. Lily slept beside me, her small form curled under the scratchy army blanket, hoodie tucked tight against her chin. The goggles pressed into my temples, their faint blue glow a constant reminder of the world we'd stumbled into. Beyond the canvas walls, floodlights carved through the thinning fog, and the steady drone of helicopters stitched the night together. My watch read 3:47 a.m., hours since we'd rolled into Ashwood Processing Zone 1, but sleep wouldn't come. Not with the red haze still flickering at the edges of my vision, not with the hollow ones out there, waiting. I shifted on the cot, wincing as my back protested. Too many years hunched over engines catching up. Lily stirred, mumbling something about turrets, her drama club set still painting her dreams. I brushed a strand of hair from her face, marveling at how she held it together, 9 years old and tougher than I'd ever been. The tent flap rustled, admitting a soldier with a clipboard, her boots thudding on the packed dirt. "Carter, James, and Lily," she called, voice sharp. "Here," I said, sitting up. Lily blinked awake, rubbing her eyes under the goggles. "Follow me," the soldier said, already turning. "Briefing and reassignment. Bring your gear." I grabbed our blankets and the water bottle we'd kept, nudging Lily. "Up, bug. Time to move." She groaned but swung her legs off the cot, hoodie dangling from one hand. "Where now?" she asked, voice thick with sleep. "Dunno," I said, guiding her after the soldier. "But we'll figure it out." The tent opened to a smaller room, partitioned with tarps, lit by a single hanging bulb. A man in fatigues waited behind a folding table, his goggles pushed up on his forehead. First time I'd seen anyone's eyes since the fog hit. They were tired, bloodshot, but human. "James Carter, mechanic?" he asked, flipping through a clipboard. "Yeah," I nodded. "And Lily?" "Sit," he said, gesturing to 2 metal chairs. We sank into them, Lily leaning into me. "I'm Captain Reese. You're cleared. No exposure, no symptoms beyond the ringing." "Lucky. Lucky's one way to put it," I said, keeping my tone even. What's the deal now? He leaned back, rubbing his jaw. Situation's stabilizing. Hollow ones, our name for them, are retreating under the countermeasures. Fog's breaking up, but they're not gone. We're relocating survivors to fortified zones till we root them out. Fortified zones. Lily piped up, clutching Hootie. Like castles. Reese's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Something like that, kid. You're headed to Zone 3, 20 miles north. Old Army base, secure, stocked, safe. Transport leaves in 30. What about Ashwood? I asked. Our home. Under quarantine, he said flat. Teams are sweeping for stragglers and compromised. No civilians back till it's clear. Could be days. Could be weeks. I swallowed, picturing our little house, Lily's drawings, my toolbox, the life we'd patched together. And the hollow ones. What are they? Reese's eyes darkened. We don't know much. Showed up with the fog. First reports out of Pine Hollow, then here. Direct eye contact triggers something. Turns you into one of them. Fast. They mimic voices, lure you out. Can't enter uninvited, but they're persistent as hell. Like vampires, Lily murmured, half to herself. Close enough, Reese said. Goggles filter their effect, but they're not perfect. Keep him on outside the zones. I nodded, the pieces clicking, Ms. Carter's drills, Evan's warning, the voices at our door. So we just wait? You live, he said, standing. Transport's at Bay 4. Grab your slips and go. Next group's waiting. He handed me a paper. Zone 3, Truck 17, caught assignment pending, and waved us out. We shuffled back into the main tent, the air heavier now with anticipation. Survivors milled around, some clutching kids, others staring blankly, all goggled and hollowed out. I spotted Carla near the exit, her usual chatter gone, shoulders slumped. You okay? I asked, pausing. She glanced up, nodding faintly. Yeah, going to Zone 2. You. Zone 3, I said. Hang in there. You too, she muttered, turning away. Bay 4 was a hive of activity, trucks rumbling, soldiers barking orders. We climbed into Truck 17, a hulking rig with benches and a canvas roof. Lily settled beside me, Hootie in her lap, as more families piled in, a quiet bunch, eyes darting behind their goggles. The engine roared, and we jolted forward, rolling past the compound's gates. Through the canvas slit, I saw Ashwood fading, streets littered with abandoned cars, houses dark, the fog a thin red veil in the goggles' glow. No tall shadows now, but I knew they weren't gone. Daddy, Lily whispered, will it be like this forever? I squeezed her hand. Not forever, Bug. They're fighting it. We'll get back to normal. Maybe a new normal, but we'll make it work. She nodded, leaning into me. Like the mechanic and the girl? Always, I said, kissing her forehead. The ride smoothed out, the road stretching north through fields and woods. Dawn was breaking somewhere beyond the haze, a faint gold seeping into the blue-tinted world. The truck slowed, pulling into Zone 3, an old base ringed with razor wire and watchtowers, tents and barracks sprawling under floodlights. Soldiers waved us out, directing us to a check-in tent. A woman with a tablet scanned our slip. Carter, James, and Lily. Barracks 7, bunks 14 to 15. Mess halls open at 0600. Keep the goggles till all clear. We trudged to Barracks 7, a long, low building with rows of bunks. Ours were near a window, barred, curtained, safe. Lily flopped onto her bunk, kicking off her sneakers. Better than the fort, she said, a faint grin breaking through. Fancier, at least, I agreed, dropping onto mine. The mattress creaked, but it held. Sleep, Bug. I'll wake you for breakfast. She yawned, tugging the blanket up. Finish the story first. I chuckled, settling beside her. Okay. Once upon a time, the mechanic and the girl found a new castle, big, strong, full of helpers. The fog stayed outside, and they rested, knowing they'd won the night. Her eyes fluttered shut, breath evening out. I kept my voice low, spinning the tale till she was gone, then leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The bass hummed around us, soldiers patrolling, engines idling, a radio crackling somewhere with updates, perimeter holding. Hollow ones sighted 5 miles southeast. Fog density dropping. I peeled off my jacket, goggles still snug. Sleep tugged at me, but I fought it, replaying the night. The static, the voices, those long, bent shadows. We'd survived, but Ashwood wasn't ours anymore, not yet. Maybe never. The thought stung, but Lily's steady breathing dulled it. She was here, safe. That was enough. A siren wailed, short, sharp, not the Hollow One's mimicry. All clear for Zone 3. A voice boomed over speakers. Goggles optional indoors. Exterior restrictions remain. Murmurs rippled through the barracks as people fumbled theirs off. I hesitated, then slid mine down, blinking in the dim light. Lily stirred, squinting up at me. "We can take them off?" she asked, voice slurry. "Inside." "Yeah," I said, helping her with hers. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but clear, human. Mine felt the same, raw but mine. She smiled, small but real. "You look better without them." "Handsome as ever," I teased, ruffling her hair. "Sleep, bug. Sun's up soon." She nestled back, hootie under her chin. I lay down, the barracks sounds fading. Boots, murmurs, the distant chop of blades. Outside, the fog was losing its grip, gold light creeping through the curtains. I closed my eyes, letting exhaustion pull me under, Lily's hand brushing mine across the gap. We woke to a bugle call, harsh and off-key, yanking us from sleep. Lily groaned, burying her face in hootie. "Too early," she mumbled. "Army life?" I said, swinging my legs off the bunk. "Mess hall's open. Pancakes, maybe?" That got her moving. We shuffled out, joining a line of survivors, goggle-free now, faces pale but alive. The mess hall smelled of coffee and grease, a slice of normal in the madness. We grabbed trays, pancakes, syrup, applesauce, and found a table by the window. Outside, the fog was a faint haze, the red gone from my vision. Soldiers patrolled, but the tension had eased, a fragile calm settling in. "Daddy," Lily said, poking her pancakes. "We're okay, right?" "Yeah, bug," I said, meeting her eyes. "We're okay." She nodded, digging in. The sun climbed higher, cutting through the last wisps of gray. Zone 3 wasn't home, but it was solid, walls, people, a chance to breathe. The Hollow Ones were out there, the world shifted under our feet, but we'd face the night and come out whole. Together, we'd build whatever came next. The pancake sat warm in my stomach as I watched Lily finish her applesauce, her fork scraping the bowl with a quiet determination. The mess hall buzzed around us, a fragile bubble of chatter and clinking trays, but my mind drifted beyond the barred windows. The fog was nearly gone now, just a whisper of haze clinging to the tree-line, and the sun painted the base in sharp, clean lines. Zone 3 felt like a foothold, a pause in the chaos, but the Hollow Ones were still out there, retreated, not beaten. What were they? Where had they come from? And what happened to the ones who'd looked, the ones who'd changed? Ashwood lingered in my thoughts, a ghost town we might never reclaim, its streets silent under an unanswered question mark. I glanced at Lily, her goggles off, her eyes bright despite the shadows beneath them. We'd survived, carved out this moment, but the world beyond the wire was a puzzle with missing pieces. The soldiers' radios crackled with reports, sightings, movements, a fight still unfolding in the gray unknown. Would we ever go home? Or was home something we'd have to build anew? Brick by uncertain brick? The story wasn't over. Not for us. Not for anyone in this shifted reality. It hung there, teetering on the edge of what might come next, a thread left dangling in the dawn. And that's where I'll leave you, folks, right on that edge, with James and Lily safe for now, but the Hollow Ones lurking in the shadows of a world turned upside down. What do you think happens next? Will they reclaim Ashwood, or is something bigger brewing out there in the fog? Drop your theories in the comments. I'm dying to hear what you make of this open road. If you've stuck with us through this ride, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss whatever's coming. This night's done, but the story? It's just getting started. Thanks for watching. Let's keep unraveling this together.